Welcome back to Kleppers Corner. Today in history. Today we're diving into February 25th, a date in world history that feels less like a calendar day and more like the universe accidentally hit shuffle on civilization. This is the date where empires fall, dictators rise, nations reinvent themselves, science takes a joyride, and Muhammad Ali tells the world, very politely, to sit down and shut up. February 25th isn't a day, it's a personality type. Segment 1, bureaucracy, autocracy, and the world's most dangerous paperwork. Let's start with Adolf Hitler becoming a German citizen on February 25th, 1932. And if you're thinking, well, that must have involved a lot of people saying absolutely not, oh no. Hitler got citizenship the way your least qualified cousin gets a job at the DMV. Someone high up just signed a form and said, sure, let the guy who screams a lot run things. His buddy, Wilhelm Frick, basically slid him into a low-level government job in Braunschweig, and boom, citizenship unlocked. Democracy speedrun complete. And the punchline is that the last barrier standing between Hitler and his run for high office wasn't an army or a constitutional tribunal or even common sense. It was residency paperwork. Paperwork. A democratic system outmaneuvered by the same energy you use when lying on your taxes about home office equipment. Then, 15 years later to the day, February 25th, 1947, the Allies said, you know what? Maybe Germany doesn't need its imperial militaristic personality anymore, and legally dissolved the state of Prussia. Poof. Gone. Imagine if tomorrow the UN just erased Florida because it had too much energy. That's basically what happened. Prussia disappears, Kaliningrad gets created, and the Cold War geography chart looks like someone dropped it and put it back together by memory. And then, in 1956, Khrushchev rolls into the secret speech like a guy doing stand-up at Stalin's funeral. He basically says, hey comrades, turns out our entire government was run by a paranoid maniac. And the whole Eastern Bloc responded the way your family did when you explained NFTs at Thanksgiving. Confused, panicked, and slightly on fire. The speech destabilizes half the communist world, sparks uprisings, and proves that exposing the truth is great, unless the truth is that your entire empire is built on fear and paperwork. And fast forward to February 25th, 1991, when the Warsaw Pact dissolves. The Cold War's giant military alliance just quietly exits stage left. No fireworks, no dramatic music, just 7 countries collectively ghosting the Soviet Union. February 25th, where giant systems go to die. Segment 2, people power, dictators out, democracy, sometimes. On February 25th, 1986, Ferdinand Marcos fled the Philippines after the People Power Revolution. A dictator toppled not by guns, but by unarmed civilians, priests, nuns, and a radio station that basically said, everybody get outside and please don't let the tanks through. And the tanks listened, because nothing defeats armor like an army of Filipinos with rosaries and snacks. Corazon Aquino becomes president. Democracy is restored. And for a shining moment, it looks like civil resistance might finally win the long game. Until decades later, when the Marcos family rebrands itself on social media like a political boy band and comes back to power. February 25th teaches us that democracy is strong, but nostalgia with a TikTok filter is undefeated. Then we move to Nicaragua in 1990, where Violeta Chamorro peacefully defeats Daniel Ortega at the ballot box. Ortega then eventually returns years later and dismantles democracy like it's an IKEA bookshelf he never liked anyway. February 25th, where dictators leave, but sometimes just to get a sandwich. Segment 3, expansion, money, and the mechanics of power. Jump back to 1779, when George Rogers Clark captures Fort Sackville at Vincennes, a victory that basically says, surprise, America now claims the entire Midwest. This sets the stage for the country expanding westward, so thank Clark every time you eat deep dish pizza or get lost in rural Indiana. Then, February 25, 1836, Samuel Colt patents the revolver, the tool that turns every frontier dispute into a six-shot conversation. It democratizes violence, because nothing says equality like everybody having 200% more firepower. On February 25, 1862, Congress passes the Legal Tender Act and invents the greenback, America's first major fiat currency. In other words, the government says, money is now a vibe. Please pretend it's real. This becomes the foundation of the entire modern economy, which is still mostly vibes. And in 1901, U.S. Steel becomes the world's first billion-dollar corporation, thanks to J.P. Morgan, who apparently woke up one day and said, "I'd like to own everything, please." It's the birth of monopoly capitalism, the industrial Gilded Age, and the idea that rich guys can simply fuse companies together like a Marvel villain merging universes. Segment 4. Science, nukes, DNA, and other things humans should probably handle carefully. February 25th is stacked with scientific breakthroughs. You get the 1866 skull discovery in California that briefly made archaeologists panic that humans had hung out with mastodons. Spoiler, they didn't. But the skull did keep paleontologists arguing long enough to fill every grad student's reading list for 40 years. In 1933, the USS Ranger launches, the first U.S. aircraft carrier built as an aircraft carrier, not a retrofit. It's the naval equivalent of buying a sports car instead of welding wings onto your dad's station wagon. In 1959, the APT language debuts, the ancestor of CNC machining, turning computers into factory workers who never unionize or ask for lunch breaks. Then, Pickering Nuclear Station goes online in 1971, Canada's first commercial nuclear station, the peak of atomic optimism. What if we turn invisible particles into electricity and hope nobody glows? We also get huge scientific birthdays. William Astbury, the man whose X-ray diffraction work made the discovery of DNA structure possible. Ida Nodak, who predicted nuclear fission before anyone believed her. Lev Artsimovich, the mastermind behind the tokamak, and the passing of Glenn Seaborg, who discovered so many elements that the periodic table basically needed an expansion pack. Segment 5, Culture, Music, and Muhammad Ali, redefining cool. On February 25th, 1751, New York exhibits the first performing monkey. Congratulations, America. Your entertainment industry officially begins with a confused primate and a crowd of colonists who clearly needed hobbies. Then, in 1705, Handel premieres his opera, Nero. And if you're thinking it must have been dramatic, yes, it's based on a guy who fiddled while Rome burned. So basically, early political satire with better wigs. Jump ahead to 1981. When Christopher Cross sweeps the Grammys so completely, the Recording Academy basically asks, what if smooth jazz is the future? Spoiler, it wasn't. Then, Frank Sinatra performs live for the final time in 1995. The end of an era. He bows out at a golf tournament in the desert, which feels like the universe saying, even legends get weird venues. And finally, February 25th, 1964. Clay versus Liston. Cassius Clay shocks the world, becomes Muhammad Ali, and changes sports, race, politics, and swagger forever. Before Ali, athletes were expected to smile politely and not talk too loud. After Ali, athletes everywhere realized, oh, we can have opinions and win? Fantastic. Ali didn't just win a fight. He detonated the boundary between sports and politics with the confidence of a man who rhymes while punching people. Segment 6, Violence, Vigilance, and the Anatomy of Modern Conflict. February 25th also forces us to confront harsher truths. In 1994, the Cave of the Patriarchs massacre unfolds in Hebron, a horrific act of violence designed to derail peace talks. It did. It triggered riots, retaliatory attacks, and a devastating spiral that still shapes the political reality of the region today. A reminder that one extremist can sabotage years of diplomacy faster than negotiators can schedule a meeting. February 25th is also the final staging ground for the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. The bomb detonates the next day, but the planning, the rental van, the chemicals, the logistical panic all climax right before midnight. It marks the arrival of modern transnational terrorism on U.S. soil and the beginning of an intelligence era nobody was prepared for. And though technically February 26th, the shooting of Trayvon Martin is historically intertwined with these late February patterns. A moment that ignited a national conversation about race, justice, and the disturbing elasticity of laws meant to protect people. The aftermath became the catalyst for the Black Lives Matter movement, reshaping civil rights discourse for a new generation. In conclusion, February 25th is the overachiever of calendar days. Dictators rise and fall. Revolutions succeed and collapse. America expands and industrializes. DNA is decoded. Nuclear power hums to life. Corporations fuse like transformers. Athletes redefine culture, and entire geopolitical systems flicker out like someone unplugged them. It's a day that reminds us history isn't made only by generals or inventors or activists. It's made by paperwork, revolvers, elections, speeches, uprisings, scientific curiosity, and the occasional performing monkey. February 25th shows us that progress is not a straight line, but a chaotic collage of ambition, resistance, innovation, and sometimes just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that, my friends, is why history never gets a day off.